everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of Lockbox Lunatics. I'm one of your hosts up here in Kennewick, Washington, Steve Lambert, and we've got Mr. Chad down in Phoenix, Arizona area. How are you
Well,
doing,
good
dude?
morning, everybody. And I just want everyone to know that Mr. Lambert up in Washington had a birthday a couple days ago.
I
And
did.
he's a few days older than he used to be. And so
Yep.
happy birthday. I hope you had a great time.
Thank you, sir. I
Well,
appreciate that. I
did you
did.
end
I
up going
did.
out to the movie that night, or what did you end up doing?
Went out to dinner actually, and
Nice.
treated myself to a little glass of champagne as a celebratory little thing to happy birthday for me kind of thing. So, and it was 50 degrees and pouring rain all day. So
All right.
typical Western Washington day, not Eastern Washington day, but the sun is shining out now and we're in good
So you
shape.
had a little champagne celebrating what, your 38th birthday? Is that right?
Exactly. Exactly.
It's
And
not
even
every day you
guess my
turn
age
38.
right. You know what? We'll put this out there. I don't think this will help us get more viewers or subscribers, but maybe guess my age correctly and I will send you a $25 Starbucks gift card.
Oh, there we go.
Just saying.
Nice.
Just
The
saying.
gauntlet is thrown out there. Guess Steve's age,
That's
and
right.
you'll get a gift card. And
If
if you
it's
do,
too high, if it is too high, I'm going to sign you up for a subscription magazine list or something. I don't know.
well, I'll double down. If they guess your age, I'll throw in $25 as well.
Dang, that's a $50 value
That's a
right there.
$50 value. Now there are some exceptions. Relatives aren't allowed to play.
That's right, relatives. Although I don't know if many of my relatives, they might not know. I'm the youngest, so they generally don't. They're like just off in their own la la land doing their own thing. But
Actually, yeah, today's my sister's birthday, and so I reached out to her and wished her birthday and said, I couldn't have picked a better sister, although I did stand in line to to ask for one.
so mean of you, but so appropriate at the same time. You have to do that with your siblings. I mean, we
You
are
got
the
to keep
best
them in
and the
line.
worst to each other. And kind of speaking of the best and the worst to each other, we kind of had an idea for today's episode. We talk about how we have a lot of differing types of clients and this obviously this our stuff is open to agents and general public, obviously our topics. And
Right.
so we hope we give you guys some fun stuff out of that. But we were talking about, kind of we kind of mentioned Old Yeller and because we wanted to talk about clients that yell actually at a lot of things, whether they need to be yelling or not. And it kind of got us giggling a little bit because we remember those clients very well
We
and
do. Very fondly.
very fondly. And they do show up because they are memorable, not always for the right reasons, but they are memorable. And so we were kind of doing a little walk down memory lane today, and maybe some of the more ridiculous requests that we've had from clients, or requests that you things that just kind of make you go, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we've each had a fair share of those in during our career. So I want to ask you, Chad, when you think about we'll talk about our yellers, but what are some of the things where you were in the middle of a deal and a client was going to do something, maybe based upon principle? We talk about this sometimes, how people's pride
Mm.
sometimes can get in the way of a deal because they want to be right versus necessarily sometimes getting to the end of the deal, which is getting what they want. Sometimes they're convinced they're going to put this one stick in the spoke, I guess, what's one that stands out to you with clients that you've dealt with? What's one? And we're protecting everybody's identity in these.
All right. So, this takes me back. So this is how a seller is going to get back at the buyer effectively, right?
Okay.
Was that the question? I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, no,
So we're not
a little,
necessarily hitting,
yeah, no, yep.
we're not necessarily touching on the screamers at this point in time.
No, not the screamers. Now we're looking at, yeah, we're gonna start off with the people that are they're gonna prove their point.
Okay. So which is funny because this just happened. This happened recently again. Okay.
Oh
So
wow,
I'm
okay.
gonna go, I'm gonna go back years ago.
Gonna go
Not
in the
exactly the
Wayback
same
Machine
one.
right now.
So this buyer goes into this house and they decide that they have to use the facilities and they use the facilities and they don't flush.
Ooh.
So the seller was extremely upset about that. And I said, hey, I totally get it. They should have flushed. We were taught that when we were children, whether it didn't go down or not, who knows? And so I'm like, moral of the story, just flush. Well, they're getting ready to leave, and the husband says, "Hey, I'm going to fill the toilet up, and I'm just going to let it sit there."
Oh gosh.
So he fills the toilet up and lets it sit there.
Oh no.
Me not wanting, me just being reasonable, I learned this, and I ran over there and I flushed it.
Yes.
That was the last thing I needed to have happen. And then, flash forward to now, there may or may not have been somebody who urinated all over someone's bathroom, and they may or not be threatening to do the same thing when they leave. But yeah, it's kind of humorous. I know you have one just as funny.
Oh, I have some
Yeah,
interesting ones,
yeah.
but to that point though, I had a house listed this a couple years ago, and it's about to close. And so I'm just kind of going through, just doing, the people had moved across the country, so I was kind of keeping an eye on it for them while the house was vacant. I'd just go in there once a week and make sure, nothing's flooding or anything weird. And because people had been coming in and out of the house, inspectors and things like that, right? And so I would check each time. 2 days before closing, I go down. The house is vacant, empty. There's no supplies in the house. So think about it. I go down to the downstairs bathroom, and it is up to the rim, and somebody probably tried to flush, but way too much toilet paper in there. So I'm wondering if the inspector or an appraiser or somebody had possibly kids with them and let them use the bathroom, and the kids were like, did what the kids do, just tons of toilet paper, everything else, and it didn't flush. We had some floaters in there, so it didn't flush. I have no equipment with me. I'm like, what the heck, right? And it's very interesting. So I'm trying to figure out, there's no plunger, there's no anything. I go into the garage and I find a plastic PVC pipe about 2 feet long. I'm like,
Hmm.
yes, huh. So I'm in there just cranking this thing in the toilet, trying to see if I can get any kind of action. About 20 minutes later, no joke, because I was losing my mind, I hear a gurgle and it starts to drop. Thank God I was able to use the plastic tube to hold some of the toilet paper back over successive flushes, let a little bit each go each time until it cleared out, and then problem solved. We were good to go again. So, anyways, fascinating. So that kind of tied
Well,
into yours, but I
it,
little
it did.
MacGyvered it there.
Now, is that a disclosure issue? Is that something where we had a need to go tell the buyer, hey, we had
No,
a
because it
slow
worked
drain?
fine after that.
Oh, okay.
No, it worked absolutely fine. It didn't, because like I was flushing fine. Literally the entire roll of toilet paper, there was the tube just sitting there. So most of
Okay.
it would, I'm guessing it was probably a 5-year-old kid or something like that, just going to town with the toilet paper.
So you didn't run a quality control test on it afterwards,
I did
other
not.
than
It was a bit
flushing
of a
water.
crappy job though. It was a little bit of a crappy job.
That is a
No,
crappy
no, I
situation.
did flush it. It kept flushing. It was flushing fine. There was no backup. I was like, because I did want to make sure that I was making sure that it was very clear. I think I flushed it like 6 or 7 times after that. We were good. We were
Right,
So
right.
no, but I had a deal that was a bit contentious with a very uptight seller. Just put it that way. And I can appreciate that at times, but not through the entire process. So the seller and I were probably on each of our own last nerves at this point. But there was a propane tank involved that he owned and that the new people were taking over, and that's how they ran their stove and their fireplace. Huge propane tank. They would get it filled every couple
Right.
of years. So he had had it filled about a year and a half prior, and they had moved out of the house because they had a couple different properties. So they were living at their new property most of the time now. So there was quite a bit of propane left in this tank. And the buyers had come back and had asked for quite a few things on the inspection contingency, which he didn't really want to fix, but he ended up fixing. This was a higher end sale, about, I think about 1 million, 2 million, three, at least for our area, anyways. And so he was getting irritated by that. And I said, well, these are deferred maintenance things that are like, this actually seems reasonable to me. I'm not trying to say let's lay over here, but a lot of these are very reasonable deferred maintenance things that you kind of want to hand over a house that's in good working condition. And there's several things that were bigger ticket that were not in working condition. And it was a massive house. We're talking like 8,200 square feet, three levels,
Oh,
the whole nine
yeah.
yards. So, and it was just he and his wife. So a lot of this stuff wasn't surprising me. You see that sometimes in bigger homes. It's just kind of out of sight, out of mind, right? There's a lot of things going on that you don't always notice. So they were asking for these things to be fixed, and I thought they were reasonable. So we were working through that, but clearly he was upset about that. And he said, I would like to know how much propane is left in my tank and what that going rate is for that. And I want the buyer to pay me for that. I said, or what? And he goes, well, otherwise I'm going to have the propane drained out, taken out, and they can fill the tank themselves. And I was like, so do you get anything for that? And he goes, no, I actually have to pay for that. And he was all irritated. And I was like, can I ask you how this makes sense then? So you're willing to lose money to have somebody come take away something that's already sitting there because you feel now that you want the buyer to pay for the propane that you bought a year and a half ago that was going to be just used up anyways and is just kind of part of everything getting it was fascinating. It was
Yeah.
fascinating.
That's
You know what?
that's called cutting your nose off to spite your face.
Yeah,
That's
almost
exactly
killed
what
the
that's
deal
called.
because he
Yeah.
said, I'm half tempted to charge them for the water in the pool based upon the gallons of in my because that came out of my pocket because I had to fill it up with my hose, which came out of I had to pay for that. And I was like,
How do you reconcile that? Okay, how many times did you actually go in the swimming pool after that? Right. So from a
I
buyer's
mean,
perspective, I'd be like, I want some sort of reconciliation for how much use you received because I'm going to be swimming in the same water you swim.
yeah, is it contaminated? Like, so I mean, I have to tell you, so during that phone call, and so agents and sellers, but for agents, let this be a lesson to you. That was a tough one for Steve to bite his tongue on.
Yeah.
And my
And
only response back, I sat there, my response back, which I thought was appropriate, I said, are you being serious right now? Because I honestly didn't know what to say. And he said, yes, I am. And my response to that was, I think that's a really bad idea. So, um, you just run across interesting things, but that ties into our old yeller now client
well,
because
hold on. Before we
yes,
switch gears, let me ask you this.
yes.
So I'm just thinking of a for sale by owner, right?
Okay,
Can you,
sure.
can
Yeah.
you imagine a seller doing a for sale by owner and going at the buyer with something like that? I mean,
Oh gosh,
that's a primary example of why you need a real estate agent, a realtor,
100%.
involved in the transaction to try and remove the emotions, because that's all it is someone's emotional.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to remove the emotions from the equation, to get to a common goal of selling the property.
I'll
And
tell you that one. Yeah, because that one, man, I would, yeah, I could see that. If that was between them and there was no go between, the deal's probably gonna be done at that point. Or we're gonna be seeing him on an episode of Cops, right?
oh, exactly.
I,
Exactly.
yeah,
So
bad stuff.
so switching gears to Old Yellow.
Oh,
I remember it was right after the 2007 crash. I think it was 2007.
mhm.
We were starting to see the crash coming, right? You could see that, right on the horizon. Took a
Yeah,
listing and the owners, the husband was just a fantastic guy. We get an offer, which within a couple weeks to go into market, sitting down at the kitchen table. Now, all I'm doing at this point is I'm just reviewing the offer with them, asking, letting them know, hey, this is what the buyer's asking. And I set up this, hey, this is just what they're asking. We don't have to comply with this, right?
right.
We get to the appliance phase of the contract and they ask for the refrigerator. The wife instantly screams, I want my refrigerator. She's screaming at the top of her lungs, literally. I just looked at her, my eyes got so big, and I looked at the gentleman and I'm like, it's a refrigerator. And he's sitting there going, honey, you don't even like that refrigerator. I want my refrigerator. They're not getting my stinking refrigerator. Honey, when we move, I'll buy you a brand new one. There's one that you had your eye on. I'll buy you that one. This is not that big of a deal. She continues to scream. Then she's walking back the hall to go hide out in her bedroom. The entire time, walking down the hall. She's screaming, "I want my refrigerator." You hear the door slam. You hear her screaming, "I want my refrigerator." I looked at the guy and I said, we might not be a good fit. So I grabbed my paperwork up and I said, I'll send over documents to sign to, end this relationship right now. I mean, really enjoyed working with you. You're a referral. You're a great guy. But I can't work with that. It's a
Yeah.
refrigerator, right? And we haven't even responded. My recommendation would be a counter. We would just counter, no, you don't get the refrigerator, right? And so probably about 5, 10 minutes after I left, my phone rings and it's him. And he's like,
Oh
"Hey,
gosh.
don't fire me. Don't fire me. Please come back."
Oh
So I,
gosh.
so
That's
I
great.
put it, I put it under the premise, fine, but I'm not working with her. I'm not dealing with her.
Yeah, I need to just like have some. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the same client that I had that wanted the other things, I ended up working with his wife because I couldn't work with him.
Oh, wow.
He Because I pick up the phone after we go through all this and I said, "Hey, we're not going to do that." He starts yelling at me because I told him we weren't going to do the whole propane thing. So he sent all that to me in an email. So I call him and say, "Hey, we're not doing that. Like that's we're not going to do that." And he starts screaming and yelling at me through the phone. And this guy is just going for like 5 or 10 minutes, just on everything. He's screaming and yelling about everything. I can't. I'm not even saying anything. I can't even get a word in at this point. I'm just literally holding my phone away like from my ear. I'm like, this is intense.
Right.
And so I finally just tell him. I sat there and I said, "Hey, like I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Like this is pointless. I'm actually on your side and you're making this really difficult. I'm done. I'm done with you. I'm done with that. Whatever. I'll call your wife and talk to her." So I hang up on him and I call her. I tell her what's been going on. She's mortified. Well, I think he's under a lot of stress at work. All right, folks. So we're doing a hard edit here. So that was probably a little bit painful, maybe like a car accident, a little herky jerky, but we'll do the best we can. But we were talking about clients that yell and scream, and I was talking about a client who started yelling, and I was not going to work with him anymore. I was going to work with his wife. And so we were about a week out of closing, and this guy was just screaming and yelling on the phone and everything else. And so he and I just agreed to disagree. And I said, "I'll just go ahead and talk with your wife from here on out." But I have never been yelled at like that before. I think I could see like spit flying out of the phone. It was so crazy. It was
Yeah.
bad. It was
Yeah.
bad. So that was my one really bad experience with a yeller. And I
Well,
know
you
you.
ex you
Mhm.
experienced one of mine in Vegas
Oh
last year.
gosh, yeah, that's right.
Remember?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
that was crazy. Yeah,
That
I
was
could I could
crazy.
hear that. I could hear that. I think you were walking behind us. We were going through like the main lobby of a main like a hotel, which everybody like for those of you that do know or don't know, but Vegas when you're walking through it's like you're going through the casino. That's part of it. It's loud. Could hear this person through the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I was following their directions and they were mad that it backfired on them. It was basically, we were trying to come to terms on a repair request. And they said, well, if they're not going to do that, we just want to cancel. And
Yeah.
so, after a day and a half, well, actually, it was probably 3 days of going back and forth with the listing agent. They said, go ahead and cancel it. We're going to walk away. Well, we canceled and walked away. I sent a text saying, I had it all ready, and I sent the email and said, hey, we've canceled, or I sent a text, we just canceled. I've asked for the earnest deposit back. Literally, the wife got that, and 30 seconds later, she was on the phone screaming that this was all my fault. And and that they
How
didn't want
dare
to,
you follow our directions,
yeah,
Chad?
that
How
they
dare
didn't
you?
want to cancel that, originally. And the only reason they canceled was because I messed the deal up. And so later that night, so I let her, I talked to her and she just wanted to be heard. So I listened for the most part, and she wanted to blame me for some misunderstandings. And she asked the husband, she's like, you were on the phone. Isn't that how you understood it? And the husband said, no. And then,
Oh
and
gosh. Now they're
yeah,
divorced. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, no, well, and I could see, dude, that was probably not the right answer, but I appreciated his honesty,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah.
And so then she diverted to, well, you weren't on the phone call then. And he was, but
Oh boy.
so we let it go. So that night, I was gonna fire him. And something told me not to do that, to send an email to say, hey, if you want, I can reach back out to the listing agent to see if we can breathe life back into this because we just barely canceled. I'm
Yeah.
sure the lenders are so far forward with the file. We can revive this. And ultimately, the next day, the husband got more involved, and I never had any more dealings with the wife. However, she did give me a nod because we were able to breathe life back into it, and we
Nice.
closed. So and she was going through some medical issues. I mean, so I've got to,
Okay.
give her that credit. And she,
Stressors then, extra stressors for sure. Yeah.
yes, and she was on certain medication as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and so at the house when I gave them keys, they both thanked me for my patience working with them. And the husband made a comment about, when she takes her medication, it has an impact on her.
Oh,
Yeah, so I was thinking suspicion it was due to whatever medications that she
yeah.
she was on that just kind of heightened her senses and
Yeah.
um yeah. But
Well, I think it's interesting though, because the overarching message for this is that if you're an agent and you have clients like this, I think you heard from both Chad and I that the key is you're not in a battle. You're not there to battle them back. You need to be there to listen, but you need to listen to what their desires are. But you also have to be willing and be able to just listen to them, hear them out, let things cool down. Don't get caught up in their emotional whirlwind because they'll do that. They're going to get you in their little tornado. And if you jump in and spin out with them, it's going to be a bad outcome. You got to really just listen to the people, but let that have some time and space to kind of breathe, everybody to calm down, and then come back with a plan. Like that was like beautiful. Chad came back and said, like, if you would like to, I can try to breathe life back into this. We're early on in this process. What do you think about that? And you gave them a chance to have kind of an out to get back into the deal, right?
yeah,
While at the same time saying, I'm here for you guys and I'm willing to do this if you're willing to do this, right? So showing a collective ability to work together and kind of revive it and get back to where it was. And I think that's the important part. I think it so many times I've seen agents kind of get in arguments or fights with their own clients and don't get caught up in the emotional whirlwind of it. Just understand that this is probably a very temporary thing and there might be extraneous circumstances, like you were saying, a medical situation in this point with medications that maybe impacted how a person uh, processes things, right? And how they come across. So,
right, right.
yeah.
And the key is there again, we're here to facilitate our clients' needs and try and advocate for them as
Hmm.
best we can. If we don't always get our way, it doesn't mean we didn't advocate for them, first off.
100%.
Right.
Yep.
But we're there. I always tell folks, look, buying a home is one of the top three most stressful things you're ever going to go through.
Yeah.
One is the loss of a loved one, a divorce, and buying a home are the top three stressful situations that we experience with in our life. And so if you make them aware of that on the front end, hopefully you can kind of mitigate it and you can refer back. Remember, I said this is stressful.
Yep.
This is one of the stressful times. Understand that's what you're feeling right now, and it's normal, right?
100%. Yep. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think that's an important part of it.
yeah, it is.
Well,
So,
we've used up our folks' times today. We had a hard edit in this episode, which will be
and I
fun to see.
apologize for that. That's purely on my shoulders.
The lack of
Thanks for hanging in there.
professionalism makes me want to yell. No, I'm just kidding. So right
All
on. Well,
righty.
that was awesome though. Thanks for sharing those stories with me. I appreciate it. And
Yeah, same here. And for
yeah,
those of you that are listening to the podcast, whether you're a real estate agent, go ahead and drop comments about experiences that you've had with
yes,
unusual requests or expectations from your clients, and any of the old yeller moments that you've had where you wanted to take someone out back in time to a tree. But there again, if you'd like share our podcast, we'd love to continue to grow with you, and we'll catch you next time. Take care, guys.
sounds good. See ya.
All right.
Yeah, have fun with that edit. Just kidding.
Yeah, I know, right? Man, I'm sorry.